SOE makes some changes to H1Z1's early game scavenging. Major layoffs hits Strife developer S2 Games. Phantasy Star Online is still on its way to North America. Riot is redoing League of Legends lore and more on this week's episode of Free to Play Weekly. Some unfortunate news that is all too common in this industry, S2 Games has just confirmed a large portion of the Strife development team has been laid off due to what S2 calls a byproduct of mismanagement prior to open beta. The news of S2's layoffs were originally announced on Friday by an anonymous user on Reddit, before being confirmed today in an official post on the Strife forums. According to S2, the layoffs were not caused by poor numbers from Strife's recent open beta launch, or falling player numbers, but due to actions which saw Strife's open beta team expand to accommodate roughly 80 members. This was apparently too many, as S2 believed the team size was more of what one should expect from an already established MOBA, not one who hadn't had time to grow out of its open beta infancy. As a result, out of the 80 or so developers on the team, around 50 of them now remain, something that S2 says was never the plan. Going forward, the studio remarked that the remaining team was extremely optimistic for the future of Strife, and mentioned the devs would learn from their mistakes and grow S2 Games more responsibly. S2 also apologized to those directly affected for the mistakes that led to this event, before stating the studio had taken measures to help them as much as possible through their transition. Our condolences go out to all of those affected by the layoffs. If you just so happen to be on the lookout for a 2D competitive aerial fighter, then you may want to check out Nimbly Games Altitude, which has enjoyed having a dedicated community of ace players since the game's launch in 2009, but only recently became completely free. Nimbly staffer Lampster posted on the game's forums earlier this week, explaining that they're making the move strictly to attract new players and would no longer make any money from Altitude. Alongside the announcement came a new patch which added widescreen support to the game and updated the sound library to reduce latency. Also, since there is no full version to purchase, all new players will now automatically gain access to all of Altitude's planes and perks as they level up. SOE's H1Z1 continues to make strides towards early access as the studio attempts to fine-tune the MMO zombie apocalypse to ensure players experience the perfect amount of panic, without making the game too difficult or too easy. After several player-oriented events like PAX Prime and SOE Live, the team behind H1Z1 has identified key problem areas dealing with early game progression and loot, which they've decided to change in order to steer the player's initial focus more towards scavenging and crafting. In a blog post on the official H1Z1 site, senior game designer Jimmy Weisenhunt mentioned one of the initial changes revolved around the removal of the starting axe players spawned with. By doing so, Weisenhunt says players will find an experience that reflects the true survival nature of the game. To counter the now obvious lack of early game protection, SOE has also made fists much easier to combo while attacking, with successfully timed combos resulting in more damage and the potential to stagger the enemy. Obviously, your fists will only get you so far in the apocalypse, which is why SOE has now made weapons only spawn in visible locations. This means players won't have to open every dresser they find during tense moments in the hopes of scoring a useful source of defense, and can instead look for weapons to spawn on top of cabinets, cars, tables, and toolboxes. On the flip side of things, crafting items and other prolific goods will almost exclusively spawn inside of things. This way, when things start to get hairy, players won't find things like empty cans and rolls of duct tape cluttering their visions, which could cause them to become overloaded and miss important weapons, potentially saving their lives. In terms of when players will be able to check out these changes themselves, when we spoke to SOE at PAX Prime, the studio unfortunately still wasn't ready to give an estimated release date for early access to H1Z1. It's been more than 2 years since Phantasy Star Online 2 launched in Asia, just about as long since anything was posted on the game's English language Facebook page or website, leaving North American gamers to wait and wait and wait for it to hit Western shores, or to even hear anything about it hitting Western shores. Well, good news, it's still coming someday. Specifically, Sega mentioned the publisher was currently working on bringing Phantasy Star Online 2 to the West and would update as soon as they knew more. The MMO's original North American launch was slated for 2013. So are you still looking forward to Phantasy Star Online 2, or has the allure of the series died down due to the delays? Let us know. Over the years, Riot Games has made an effort to weave a tale explaining why exactly champions within League of Legends feel the need and possesses the ability to fight each other across Summoner's Rift. I mean, the story worked okay when the number of champions was manageable, but according to a new blog post, as the roster grew to well over 100, Riot began to find issues with creating compelling reasons for why each new hero needed to join the league. And as Riot put it, the net result was that over time the world started to feel, well, small, and eventually less interesting. The institutions we designed fostered creative stagnation, limiting the ways that champions, factions, and Runeterra itself could grow and change. Furthermore, the very idea of all-powerful summoners made champions little more than puppets manipulated by godlike powers. The background we'd create to explain in-game action was ultimately restricting the potential narrative development of the game's defining characters. From this, Riot gathered that the team needed to separate narrative from gameplay, forging two distinct paths for both without the need for the two to be one-to-one copies of each other. Changing the lore doesn't mean all of the original work would be tossed out. Instead, the developers could look to use that lore as inspiration for a more modern interpretation of the world of Runeterra. Doing so might even result in League branching out into entirely new mediums. A key hint of this comes near the end of the post, where Riot mentions exploring Runeterra through various mediums in chunks both large and small, and asks for the community input on what stories Riot should tell, and what parts of Runeterra players would like to see. Using a bit of imagination, you could certainly picture League making a jump into other forms of media. You only need to look at what Blizzard did with Warcraft to see the potential. So what new things do you think Riot could do with the League's universe? And the game of the week is Arena Cyber Evolution. Arena Cyber Evolution, or ACE for short, is a futuristic, physics-based sports game where players control special characters in what can only be described as intense 3v3 games of futuristic ice hockey. Similar to hero characters in MOBAs, those found in ACE possess special abilities, making them more suited for certain types of roles on the field, such as speeding across the map using personal boosts to score a goal, while another slower character acts as a goalie, catching incoming pucks with several defensive abilities. Outside of battling the enemy team for control, each team must also be ready for the map itself to change, creating new challenges to adapt to, including strong directional winds, reflective walls, or a slippery ice arena. In the future, ACE will even give players spectating the match the ability to vote on which events will take place. So, if you're looking for a more sports-oriented competitive multiplayer experience with easy-to-learn, hard-to-master physics-based mechanics and an intense focus on player-driven development, then be sure to check out Arena Cyber Evolution. And that's going to be all on this week's episode of Free to Play Weekly. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment in the comment section below. And be sure to head over to MMOBomb.com for more free to play action. Until next time, Natsumii out.